Good morning, everybody. It is Lynn from A Bit of Birdsong. I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about ways that I distress and color pages for my art journals and junk journals. In the first part of this video, I talked quite a bit about the Imitation Vanilla Extract because I think a lot of people are starting to use that, and I don't want to give anybody bad advice. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm still using it, but we will talk more about it. I did include some timestamps for you so that if you want to jump ahead to other ways that I distress and color pages, you can do that. Okay, I will see you at the art desk. I've been working on some journals. This one's going into the shop today. It's an artsy journal with a lot of distressed pages. This is one I started on yesterday. I think we all agree that there is nothing like having a page that looks old or vintage or worn, and there are so many ways to get this effect. The first thing I want to talk about is staining pages with vanilla extract. Recently, for a Dollar Tree Junk Journal challenge, I decided to buy a bottle of Imitation Vanilla Extract from the Dollar Tree, pour it straight into the bottle, and use it to distress pages. You can then let it dry naturally, just sit it somewhere. You can hit it with the hair dryer. I have a clothesline outside where I hang things to dry while I'm working on other projects in here. Or you can let it sit for a little while and then use a paper towel to get up some of the excess, and things dry quicker that way. I do not want anybody coming here and throwing rotten tomatoes because I have given you a horrible idea. After I bought the Dollar Tree Imitation Vanilla Extract, I wanted another bottle or two, and I happened to be in Harris Teeter, and I thought I will look and see if they have something similar for the same price. They had Imitation Vanilla flavor, and I bought this. I think it was like $1.20, something like that, $1.21. Someone asked me in one of the comments if I diluted this. I didn't. I used this straight, and I didn't have any kind of sticky residue, nothing like that with this. However, with this one, I started to notice that my little sort of makeshift stencil was getting sticky. And I thought, well, what? I don't remember it doing that. And I don't want to tell people to use something that they're then going to hate. So I started looking at the ingredients. The first ingredient in both is water. They both also have sugar, which can be sticky, caramel color, artificial flavor in this one, but then this one has propylene glycol. This one has citric acid, and it's got sodium benzoate. I don't know if it's the difference in the sugar content or if it has to do with one of the other ingredients. I'm also not sure what any type of long-term effect would be from constantly spraying this in a workshop. I don't feel like it would be horrible because this is a food product, and it's not like we're aerosolizing this with, finer and finer particles. Going back to this journal, which is going into the shop, it was stained in large part with the Imitation Vanilla flavor, this one. It smells so good. None of the pages are sticking together. So I don't think it's a long-term problem. That being said, pH can matter as far as archival type projects. If you have something you want to last as long as it possibly can, you want the pH to be as neutral as possible. 7 is right in the middle. The pH scale is a scale that runs from, I believe it's 1 to 14. And 1, that area, that's really, really acid. Things that will burn through various materials. You don't want something to be too acid. Alkaline, or base, it's also called, is at the other end. It can get way scientific. It's very interesting. But the point is, the more neutral something is, the more stable it is, I guess, as far as longevity, oxidation, all that sort of stuff. And that's the little I know about that. My point is that I don't know what the pH of this is. I'm not soaking things in it. I'm not going to try to add baking soda to this. I'm just having fun with it. I'm not going to be here in 100 years. I don't expect these to be here in 100 years. However, they might be because I have books that are 200 years old. Another way I love to stain things is with straight alcohol ink. That's what has happened to this butterfly. This paper here is kind of thick. It's glossy. This is from the Dollar Tree. It comes in the packages of the butterfly die cuts. So I just put, you know, a little bit on the butterfly. It dries really quickly. Alcohol ink does. And it definitely stains. So, you know, you want to be careful if you don't want your fingers stained black. As it dries, I love how it sometimes gets a metallic look. And honestly, alcohol ink can dry with a residue. So, you know, it's not just Imitation Vanilla Extract. A lot of things can dry with a sticky finish. Mod Podge can be like that. I really don't like to use large quantities of Mod Podge on tops of things that I'm working on because they can dry sticky. One of the things this morning that really got me thinking about sharing these ideas about staining pages, I found in an old book, which I sold in my shop, and I love that book. I'm so glad it's going to somebody who's going to love it and treasure it. Inside that book, there was a history test from the 1930s, and there were these excuse for absence forms. I scanned those and made some digitals that are going to be available in the Etsy shop. They're also going to be available in my Patreon. But you can see the front has the beautiful distressed color, and then the back is just plain. There are different ways to get a distressed look. So I could take this vanilla extract, and you see I don't worry too much about spraying all over my desk. That's why these pages are in the background. It will dry pretty quickly. Another way, you know, that you can distress, I love these ink pads. Different paper is going to act differently though, so just keep that in mind. You can take one of the Tim Holtz Ranger ink pads and put it right onto the page. You know, I'm pretty sloppy with stuff like this, honestly, because I use a lot of water. Some pages it will really run. Some pages it will grab and leave marks like this. If you don't want that, and I'm pretty hard on my art products. I buy them to use them, and then I really use them. You can also put the brush right onto the ink pad. So that's going to be really pretty and kind of crinkly when it dries. And if you want the edges distressed, you can use a brush, you can use the pad, or you can use one of the blending tools that are available for purchase. So on this one, let me show you something else that I like to do. So for this one, I'm going to do a different color on the back. This is a little spray bottle with water and a watercolor pan. Just a little circle of watercolor that I liked. And I have a lot of different colors that I like to use with brushes. So the watercolor pan I'm talking about is just a little circle of solid watercolor pigment, and I dropped it in here, and I will use all of this to stain pages. I think I will come back with this. I'll be a little bit more careful this time. Since the paper is damp, it's not being really super rigid to hold up against the weight of this ink pad, so it's kind of buckling a little bit, which is why I think it's being a little bit messy, even though I'm trying to be careful. There are so many ways to distress pages, to get color on pages. I love having this paper underneath what I'm working on because look at what you end up with. These are pages that I have worked on or am currently working on. Just as a backdrop, they get all this wonderful color, all of these splashes, and I end up with paper that I can then cut down and use to make art journals. Of course, another way to distress and stain paper is to tea stain it. And that's what's going on here. I've got some playing cards. Now, I am so annoyed with myself. I was very excited to buy this and to share it. I bought one of the aluminum baking pans at the Dollar Tree to keep out here to distress pages, to tea stain pages. And the first time I used that, it was awesome. Only the second time that I tried to use it, I put my tea bags in, I poured my water in, I came over here and started working. I turned around and looked at my workbench on the other side of the workshop, and water was pouring down the front of the cabinet. Nothing had been poked through that material. I had not done anything to punch any holes in it, but it already had little micro tears in it, and water was everywhere. I went back to the Dollar Tree and found this little kitty litter, the kitty litter pen, which is also only $1, and it was perfect. And doggone it if yesterday I didn't knock this off the whole thing. I mean, there was even more water than the first time, but this was my fault. I don't think these break as easily as it looks like they do, because I knocked this one off from a height. I had climbed up onto a ladder to work on something, and I got way too close to this and knocked it off of the shelf. But I love soaking things in tea bag water. I don't do a lot of coffee staining because even though I love coffee, I'm not crazy about the smell of instant coffee once it dries. With tea, I also find that I can buy spicy or herbal tea bags that lend its scent to the paper when it's dry. Again, you know, if you want to add some baking soda to this to get the pH just right, you can do that. You don't need to add much. I think it's like just a teaspoon. And I'm sure that you could research and find out more about an exact recipe. I don't worry too much about things like that. Coming back and looking at this after it's dry, there are a couple of things I want to point out. The color that you're starting to see in these, it's like a bluish color. That is from the ink from the inkjet printer. Inkjet printers will make wonderful things that you can work with, but the ink will run somewhat with water. I think laser printers are more water fast once they dry. Now on the back, again, different papers do different things. I don't really like the looks of this. And another way that you can stain paper or add color to paper is just with watercolor. And I just love doing that. Just let it be random and just whatever color you like. It'll give it more of an artsy feel. You know, everything doesn't have to be vintage photo, although vintage photo is really nice. It's probably one of the ones I go to the most. I went ahead and dried this, so to me, I love the results of this. Adding just one more layer of color totally changed the looks of that. This is a piece of photo paper that I sprayed the Imitation Vanilla Extract on, and I'm gonna go ahead and try. One of the things I wanted to do with this is try stamping on it. I started to run it through the printer, and then I changed my mind about that. I'm kind of afraid it'll mess my printer up, and I use my printer all the time. Let's use that. So I'm just going through my stamps that have faces on them. If you ever wonder why the insides of my metal tins always look like they've been stained, it's because they have been. Alcohol ink dries really fast, and if you did this on paper, you wouldn't have anything to put your stamp in. But it seems to hang around a little longer with this. Oh, that's pretty creepy. I do like that. Let's go ahead and try to get another one before this completely dries out. There are just so many ways to get color on a page. Okay, so that one's a lot lighter. I still like that. I'm going to go ahead and stamp this on the page a few more times to try to get any of that alcohol ink off. And sometimes I go ahead and put water on it as well and stamp that. just to take all of the extra residue and pigment off. You end up with some really cool marks. Look at that one. That one's kind of clear. So this is the antique linen that I'm putting on the back of that one. This ink pad is not got a ton of ink in it. Still got some color in there though. So let's do that on the back. Oh man, is that thunder? It's really been cloudy outside and rainy. And then I'm just going to go around the edge with the vintage photo. This is so much fun, so relaxing. Another way that I love to put color on paper. This is from a non-skid rug backing. I bought it at the Dollar Tree. There are so many things you can use as stencils, you know, and don't be afraid to layer. This is a very similar material that I bought at a thrift store. So I'm just going to spray over the top of where we stamped her face on there. I love that, and I love that. You know what? This looks so ghostly. I came across some text in a book. It says an occasional train robbery. I had to cut that out. And I think what I want to do is, before I lose this little piece of text, this thing has been floating around my desk all over the place. I've been cleaning up out here, and there were a couple of times that I thought I had lost this, and it keeps showing up. So I think I better be a good steward of this glorious piece of text and put it into its place where it's not going to be lost. So I'm just going to put right here, an occasional train robbery. And we will, once that's dry, I'm going to come back and highlight around that block or rectangle or whatever you want to call it, just to make it stand out. That's going to be really cool in a journal. I also love to spray around objects, and you'll be surprised, even if it's standing off of the page a little bit, what you end up with. I wish that particular leaf would lay a little bit flatter, but that's okay. Look how beautiful this is. You could come back with a Sharpie, any sort of pen, some sort of Stabilo pen, and draw in, oh, hello. A ballpoint pen, anything, a pencil, a drawing pencil, and make outlines, the veins in the leaves, develop the flower petals, and that could be really pretty, especially if you then go in and add watercolor paint. I mean, that could be frameable. I love the way that turned out. I try to look at everything as something that could either be a stencil or something that I could lay on the page and spray on top of to get an outline. So what if you just want to get messy and build up layers in that way? There's some acrylic paint. Let's just brush some on the page, kind of in a random way. I went ahead and dried that just so that we could move on with the video, and there was a place that was kind of thick. So I'm just hitting that with a paper towel, and it does kind of add some more texture. I use this piece for acrylic paint as well. We've got this bright pink. Let's get some farmhouse red. I'm just gonna put some on the paper there. And then get a brush that's kind of flat. That's not exactly a stencil brush, but it's gonna be okay. I'm just gonna press straight down in those holes in the material. And I'm not gonna do the whole thing. But it does add more texture. And then this, let's just lay it paint side down and kind of press that to the page. This here, I don't want to waste that. So I'm going to come pick that up with a piece of paper that has been on the gel plate. And we'll put that to the side and let it dry. See, there's a little bit more that we could pick up. So let's get all we can. There we go. We're gonna do one more thing to this. I need more. I really need some more white acrylic paint. I have a tube somewhere. I think it's in my travel art case that I take with me when I'm out running errands and stuff. I like to get just some white paint and splatter it on to brighten things up. And I think we will stop with that for now. We could come back later and stamp on this. We could write on it. In fact, I went ahead and dried it. I have a quote that I want to put in my art journal. I'm going to go ahead and write it on this page. A friend of mine on Facebook shared this and something she was talking about, and I told her, wow, that quote is just so powerful. I am at peace and in pieces. Have you ever felt that way? You make a hard decision and you're at peace with it, but you're also in pieces because you mourn for what was and what might have been. So I'm going to stop for now. I do plan to come back and show you some more things as far as building up pages. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for being here. Bye for now.